section. Now, if other writers are coming, and these writers will be executing the same code, but they will not be executing wait. Of course, this if condition will not be true for them, so they will not be executing. So now they will be queued at this resource. So they will be in the queue of the semaphore resource. And when the first writer leaves, because if there are other writer threads, so naturally the value of the write count is greater than 1. So when this decreases the write count is still greater than 0. So it will not unblock the reader and come out. So now the only thread that is going to get the chance to enter the critical section once critical section would be a writer thread which is waiting here. So once a writer thread which is in the critical section signals the availability of the critical section, another writer thread which was waiting will get the chance. So as long as there are writer threads which are waiting on this resource queue, the reader thread will not get a chance. So the last writer will signal the reader, and now the reader can get a chance. Similarly, when the first reader comes, it will block the writer. And now, as long as the reader keep coming, the writer will remain blocked. So this is how this solution will work. So at this point, writer is blocking the writer, or blocking the reader. So the very first writer is blocking the reader. And here the very first reader is blocking the writer. Here the last writer is unblocking the reader. Here the last reader is unblocking the writer. This is how the solution works. Any questions? Any questions? Now this is what I call dishonesty. In the last class, there were only 73 people present, and 96 people have answered this question correct. Answered the question corresponding to the attendance. So if you people remain dishonest, then don't expect me to be towards you. Actually, I never care for attendance, okay? But I at least expect my students to be honest, because this country deserves honest people. अगर आप यहाँ से झूठ से तो सबसे पहला करप्शन शुरू होता है. करप्शन क्या आपको लगता है सिर्फ चोरी की रिश्वत लेना करप्शन है? क्या झूठ बोलना करप्शन नहीं है? This is what I expected actually. There were only 73 people. I know. I keep the record of the number of participants. So I'm not going to waste my time on knowing who is present and who is not present. So I leave it up to your own antaratma to see whether you should be doing this kind of dishonesty or not. Yeah, questions? If the writer is writing, it is in the critical section, reader is automatically blocked. No? The very first reader will also try to execute wait on resource. So it will be blocked there. So let's look at the first solution. In the first solution, if the writer is in the critical section, it means the value of the resource is equal to 0. So when the first reader comes, it will be waiting here. Okay, and because the first reader is waiting, the first reader is not able to signal this rmutex. So other readers, if they are coming, they'll be waiting on rmutex. So the very first reader will be in the queue of the resource, and other readers will be in the queue of the rmutex. Any question? Sonal, it is okay? So this is the third solution. So the first solution was more biased towards reader. The second solution was more biased towards writers. This solution is trying to ensure that, so the problem in the first solution is that as long as reader keep on coming, the writer will be stopped. So naturally, there are many processes which are trying to read the read availability of a reservation, but they are not actually booking the reservation. So the process which is trying to book the reservation may be postponed. Similarly, in the writer solution, if the writer keep on coming, then reader will not get the chance. So if there are many people who are booking the ticket, then those who want to just browse, they might not be getting the chance. So this solution, which is trying to say, is that no thread or no process should be started. So we are talking about reader thread and the writer thread. So in this particular case, we are going to maintain a queue. So whenever a thread comes, this thread will be, if this thread cannot progress, this thread will be queued. And naturally, whenever this queue will be signaled, one of the thread will be taken from the queue and then will be served. So as long as this queue is maintained in first out order, the threads will be served depending upon the time they arrive. So what happens in this particular case, we are going to add another semaphore, which is service queue. So actually, first of all, whenever a thread comes, it will see whether the queue is whether it can serviced or not. If it cannot be serviced, then it will be entered into a queue. Otherwise, it will go to the next stage. So let's very first the writer comes. So naturally, the very first writer it can be serviced. So it will execute its wait command. But now any writer or reader coming during this time will be blocked. After this, it will try to see whether the critical section is available or not. So writer comes, it checks whether the critical section is available or not. If the critical section is available, so now it will actually allow other threads to continue and it will go into the critical section. So now the writer is in the critical section. Now any thread which was waiting in the service queue, it was a writer thread, now it will be waiting on the queue of the resource. But if it will come to the next stage where it will try to implement the read count and it will try to block the resource. Because writer is already in the critical section, this cannot be blocked right now. So this reader thread will be waiting on resource. So now let's say the writer comes and reads. The first writer has to the critical section, and the second writer is waiting on the resource. Sorry, second writer is waiting on the resource. And third writer is also waiting on, and if a reader comes, the first reader is also waiting on the resource. So when this writer leaves, it will signal the resource, and now writer or reader may be scheduled. But other readers will be waiting on the queue. So ultimately, whenever a thread is blocked on the queue, we'll assume that queue is being maintained in the first in, first out order. So this thread will be taken from the queue and then will be allowed to continue. Okay. Otherwise, it remains the same. The first reader will be trying to block the writer, and last reader will be signaling the writer again. So enable the critical section, open the critical section for entry of the writer. So this is how the solution will work. Okay. I think this signal could also be brought at the end. Okay, then we'll be ensuring first in, first out service of the each and every thread. Another related problem is sleeping barber problem, which can actually be, which is actually how the client and server architecture would work. So there is a barber shop. The barber shop contains, barber shop has a barber, and this barber has a barber chair, and barber chair is used for cutting the hair. So this customer will sit in the barber chair and the hair would be cut. But barber doesn't want to lose the business, so it also has a waiting area where end chairs are placed. So when a customer comes and if he sees that barber chair is occupied, if the barber chair is not occupied, then customer will go and sit in the barber chair and barber will start cutting the hair. And if the barber chair is occupied, the customer will check whether there is any free chair available in the waiting area or not. If yes, the customer will occupy that chair. Otherwise, the customer will leave the shop. So at any time, the shop can have n+1 customer. One of the customer is being serviced by the barber, and other customers are waiting in the chair. Now, if there is no customer, the barber will go to sleep. So the very first customer that comes and finds that there is no customer will take the barber chair and wake up the barber. Now, from the barber perspective, if he's done with the person who is sitting in the barber chair, then he will go and invite the next customer from the waiting area. If there is no customer in the waiting area, the barber will go to sleep. Otherwise, one customer will move from the waiting area to the barber chair. So this is similar to multiple clients which are sending a request to a server. So server is basically nothing the barber here. And now server will be doing some processing, which is equivalent to the barber chair. But before server can process, if a server is processing a client request, then the other request will be put into the queue, which is equivalent to the waiting area with the end chair. So this is basically implementation of a client-server scenario in the concurrent system. So this is the solution. So barber will continue. This while loop indicates that the this just indicates that this is an infinitely running process and customer is an infinitely running process. So we'll be using 3 semaphores: barber ready, access chair, customer ready, and number of free chairs. So initially the access to the chair is allowed, number of free chairs are equal to n, and barber is not ready and customer is not ready. Okay. So here, so initially the barber is sleeping and there is no customer. So number of free chairs are n. So the first customer comes and it sees whether it can find a free chair or not. Basically, this access chair is not for the checking for the free chair. It is actually resource. It is actually used for ensuring that there is no race condition when number of chairs are incremented or decremented. So barber will increment the number of free chairs and customer will decrement the number of free chairs, because when a customer comes, he or she will occupy the chair, and when the barber is cutting the hair, then one of the chairs will become available. So basically, both of these processes will try to access this shared variable. So we need to ensure that any modification to this shared variable should be should be a critical section, and therefore we need a semaphore to ensure that mutual exclusion condition of this critical section be observed. So this access chair is for that purpose. So initially barber is sleeping, the customer comes, customer sees that yes, it can access chair is actually going to allow it to change the number of chairs. So if the number of free chairs are greater than 0, it will decrement the number of chairs, and then it will signal the barber. Barber is waiting for, so it will actually wake up the barber. So this signal C ready is basically a customer saying that I'm ready. And because barber was waiting on that, so barber will now wake up. And then it will wait for barber to start cutting the hair. Now, when the barber wakes up, it will also check the number of chairs, and then it will increment the number of chairs and then indicate to the customer that barber is ready. And now at this point, they both will, the hair cutting will start. Okay. Now, in this particular case, if the number of chairs are not equal to not greater than 0, if the customer comes and there is no chair available, then it will leave the shop. But because it has executed a wait command on access chair, it has to ensure that signal access chair is in both if block as well as else block. Otherwise, when the waiting area is full, a customer will leave the shop, and if it does not execute signal access chair, then naturally neither barber nor customer will be able to update the number of chairs, and ultimately that could be a problem. So it could lead to a deadlock. So this is sleeping barber, one of the solutions to the sleeping barber problem. Now, as a home assignment, I'm changing this sleeping barber problem to a different scenario. So we're assuming a real scenario in which there are multiple barbers and multiple barber chairs. So there are 3 barber and 3 barber chairs. And there are 5 chairs in the waiting area. And then there is a standing room where other additional 10 customers can be there. So now what happens in this particular case, when a customer comes to the shop, if he finds that there is a free barber chair, he will take the barber chair. Otherwise, it will go to the waiting area and take a chair if it is available. Otherwise, it will go to the standing area. And if the standing area is does not contain 10 people, it will be there. Otherwise, it will leave the shop. Now, when a barber is free, then it will actually its barber chair is free. So it has to get one person from the waiting area. So the person who came the earliest will be allowed to come in. So customers waiting in the waiting area, they'll be allowed to join in, first out mode to the barber chair. Similarly, once a customer vacates a chair in the waiting area, one of the standing customers would be allowed to sit. But again, the standing customers are also maintaining a first out queue. Once the customer's haircut has been done, then the barber will accept the payment, but it can accept payment of one person at a time because there is one single cash register. And barber would divide their time between cutting hair, accepting payment, and sleeping in their chair. So this is the assignment that you need to do. Now in this particular case, you need to remember, because we have got multiple barber chairs, so we need to go for counting semaphore. In this solution, we were using binary semaphore. So I'll leave this solution to you, and this will be the solution that you have to do, and you have to submit it by next Monday. Would that be fine? Hello? Okay. Why, Sujit, why can't you do it till Monday? Okay, so next problem that we are going to do is the dining philosopher problem. All of you are aware of this problem. You have done it in your concurrent programming also. So there are 5 philosophers who are sitting around a round dining table, and there are 5 dinner plates with food on that, and 5 forks are available. At any given time, a philosopher is either thinking or eating. And because they are philosophers, so the thinking periods may be different for different philosophers, and they can be very short or they can be very long. And every philosopher will need 2 forks to eat food. So what happens if each philosopher picks up 1 fork, keeps that fork with him, and tries to access the second fork? Then naturally, each philosopher is having a fork, and they are not leaving that fork. So ultimately, none of the philosophers will be able to eat infinitely. And this is the deadlock. So the official definition of the deadlock is that a set of processes is not able to change their state indefinitely because the resource they need are being held by other resources, and these the resources that they need are being held by other waiting process. So every process is waiting for some resource to be available, but the resource that they require is again being held by a waiting process. So this is going to create a cycle of waiting processes, and this is known as deadlock. So deadlock will occur because one process is waiting for a resource, which is being held by a second process, which is waiting for another resource, which is being held by the third process, and so on and so forth. A related term is live lock. In the live lock, the processes are changing the state. It means they are getting executed on the CPU. They change the state, but ultimately there is no real progress. So it could be like there are different routers, and a packet is being routed. So router A receives a packet, forwards it to router B, which forwards it to C C forwards it to D, and D forwards it back to A. So the router, the packet is routing. Packet is going from the incoming buffer of router A to incoming buffer of router B, and so on and so forth. So it appears as if the routers are changing the state. So each router is receiving the packet, sending the packet, receiving the packet, sending the packet. But no real progress is taking place because the same packet is being routed through the network. So this is a situation of live lock. Before we go, so let's try to see how semaphores, the incorrect use of semaphore can lead to deadlock. So we know that semaphores are used for implementing mutual exclusion between mutual exclusion. They are also used for signaling mechanism. So let's say this. So the correct implementation should require that before you enter the critical section, you wait on a semaphore, and initially the semaphore has to be a positive value. For semaphore has to be 1, or it should not be 0. Now let's see how incorrect use can. So there are some use cases. So in first case, the semaphore is incorrectly set to 0. So the very first process comes, it will wait on S, and it will be queued. Now the subsequent processes will also be queued, and because all the processes are queued, there is no process which can execute signal S, and therefore all the processes keep on waiting. So they remain in the same state. They are in the sleeping state, and their state will not change. So this has ultimately resulted in a kind of deadlock. In this particular case, a process comes. The first process comes, and now we are assuming S is equal to 1. Okay, in all the other subsequent scenario, we are assuming S equal to 1. The first process comes, and it executes a wait. S becomes 0. The process gets into the critical section. But here, when it comes out of the critical section, it will wait on this, because semaphore has become 0. So the first process which executed will be now queue for, will be waiting in the queue at this point, and other processes will be waiting on the first wait, and as a result, deadlock. In this particular case, instead of writing wait signal, we have written signal. So the first process comes, it will increment semaphore, enter the critical section. Because semaphore has been incremented, so another process will be getting the chance to decrement it. So when the second process comes, it will also signal and come. So there will be no mutual exclusion, and every process will enter the critical section, because there is no wait to block the process. Here we forgot to write the signal, corresponding signal after the critical section. So what happens? The first process comes, executes wait, S becomes 0, other processes will keep on waiting, and now all the processes are blocked. The first process gets the chance to execute the critical section, but when it comes back, it will be also queued on wait. Now in this particular case, we have used a condition, if condition. The problem is that if the condition is true, the signal is not being executed. As a result, the subsequent wait would result in the wait by this process or any other process will actually result in making the process sleep. So this is an example of deadlock using two processes. So here we are using two semaphore, S1, S2. Now this deadlock may or may not always occur. So it is quite possible the first process comes, executes wait command, first wait command, second wait command, goes to critical section, no problem. At some point, it could happen that the first process executes wait S1, but before it could execute wait S2, the context switch takes place, and the second process executes wait S2. At this point, both the processes will be deadlocked, because first process cannot execute this and second process cannot execute this. And because both of them are waiting, so signal cannot be executed. So this is how the two processes will be in the wait. Any questions till now? So similarly, this is a deadlock scenario of three processes. Now, all of you are aware of deadlock conditions. In process 2, the first process comes and executes the first wait on S1. But before it could go to wait S2, the context switch takes place. So second process gets scheduled. which actually executes wait S2. But now this process cannot continue further because S1 has become 0. So this process will be forced to wait on S1. When ultimately the first process gets scheduled, it gets stuck on wait S2 because S2 also has become 0. So the first process is waiting on semaphore 2, and second process is waiting on semaphore S1. So they keep on waiting. So this process requires S2 to become available, but S2 has already been decremented by process 2, and it can increment only here, but it cannot also progress further. It cannot also progress further. So there is a deadlock. ठीक है Abhishek? Similarly, this is for three processes. So again, process 1 comes, executes wait S1, and context switch takes place. Process 2 comes, executes this command, context switch. Then process 3 comes, executes S3. So all three processes keep on waiting in a cyclic manner. Now all of you are aware of these conditions, but still I'll go through that for the sake of completeness. So necessary and sufficient condition for deadlock is mutual exclusion, means the resource, only one process can access the resource at a time. Second is hold and wait. Process acquires the resource and holds it while waiting for another process to become available. So the processor is not releasing the resources that it has acquired and keeps on waiting for other resources that it needs to become available. No preemption, a process cannot take resources from other process. And circular wait. Circular wait means the process 1 is waiting for resource which is being held by process 2. Process 2 is holding a resource which is required by process 3, and so on and so forth. So one of the conditions need to be broken to be violated to ensure that deadlock does not happen. So if we want to avoid mutual exclusion, so we have to have enough instances of the resource. So if we think that at any time 3 files can be printed, so we can keep 3 printers. But what happens if the 4th job comes? Okay, so the multiple instances of the resources may actually elevate the problem, but number of resources cannot be infinite. And if possible, then resources virtualization should be used to create illusion of multiple resources available. Again, this may or may not always be possible. Then hold and wait, we can break this condition. So if a process will get, either a process will get all the resources, or a process will get none of the resources. So all or none policy. So naturally the processes have to make a request on the number of resources that they require. And once they have been allotted the resources, they are not allowed to ask for other resources. This is slightly difficult to implement, because in some cases if a process is greedy and acquires most of the resources, then the performance will be very, very bad. So if you do not allow the resource allocation to be dynamic, it could have consequences. And third thing is that we can break the cyclic wait. So most of the solutions will be actually working on hold and wait and cyclic wait, violation of these 2 conditions, because generally mutual exclusion and no preemption will be beyond the user process. So cyclic wait means we do not allow any cycle to occur. So generally, if we need to know whether a deadlock has occurred or not, because operating system may have to detect if deadlock has occurred or not, then we actually, so operating system maintains a resource allocation graph. So it actually keeps a graph which tells which resource has been allocated to which process and which resources are required by a process. So a resource allocation graph consists of 2 types of node, process and resource. So here the blue, the round blocks are the processes, and the square blocks are the resources. So an edge from a process to resource means this process requires this resource to be available. So process 1 is requesting resource R1. And edge from resource to process indicates allocation. So edge from process to resource indicates a request, and resource from resource to process means allocation. So it means process 1 is requesting resource 1, which has been allocated to process 2. Process 2 is allocated requesting R3, which is allocated to P3. P3 is requesting R2, but there are two instances of R2. Both of them have been allocated to P1 and P2. So this particular cycle is indicating a deadlock. Okay. Now in this particular case, we get the similar cycle, but there is no deadlock because resource R2 is free. So naturally, when process 3 requires resource R2, this resource will become available and process 3 will be able to continue. Once it continues, then these two resources become available. So let's look at another scenario. In this case also, there will not be any deadlock. Why? Because there are three resources of the resource 2. And one of the resources have been allocated to P4. After some time, P4 will be executing and this resource will become available. And then this resource can be given to P3, which can continue. So dining philosopher problem basically illustrates a deadlock condition. So there are different solutions to the dining philosopher condition. So the solution one is that a philosopher will try to acquire both the forks at the same time. So it is all or none policy. If it is successful, it will keep the forks and start eating. Otherwise, it will put the fork that it acquired on the table. So if all the philosophers try to grab the fork at the same time repeatedly, then this solution can lead to infinite postponement. Second solution is that 4 philosophers try to acquire left fork and then the right fork. Well, there is the last philosopher, that is philosopher P5, will try to get right fork and then left fork. So now if you look at P5 and its neighbor, when the P5 is trying to pick up the right fork, naturally it is contending for the same resource which its neighbor is trying to pick on its left. So its right neighbor is trying to pick the left fork, so they both are contending to the same fork. So now, naturally, when the processes are for the same resource, one will become successful. So if P5 becomes successful on the right fork, then its right neighbor has failed to pick up the left fork and it will stop participating. Otherwise, if the right neighbor is successful, then philosopher 5 will give up. So out of 5 contenders, 5 philosophers, only 4 will be contending for 5 forks. So ultimately, one of them will get 2 forks and start eating. So that's how the deadlock will be broken. Solution B is a slight better version of this, in which we are actually having 5 philosophers. So we are saying that these are the odd numbered philosopher and these are the even numbered philosopher. So now the odd numbered philosopher will try to first pick up left fork and then the right fork, whereas even numbered philosopher will go for second policy, right fork and left fork. So naturally, 2 philosopher pairs will be fighting for the same fork in the first phase when they are trying to pick the first fork, and naturally 2 of them will have to give up. So we'll be left with 5 forks and 3 philosophers. So ultimately, 2 philosophers can die if there is a deadlock-like condition. Another area is that, okay, so we can say that philosophers are thinking in certain area, and when they are hungry, they will go to the dining area, but dining area now has only 4 chairs. So only 4 philosophers can go and eat there at a time. So this will ensure that at least one of them has 2 forks. So we can restrict the number of philosophers which are allowed to eat. Yet another solution is that you number the fork, and so as the philosophers are sitting around the table, you can also give the number of so P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, and similarly we can give the fork number also F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. So naturally, philosopher 1 can pick up F1 and F2, philosopher 2 can pick up F2 and F3, and so on. So naturally, every philosopher can pick up only 2 of the forks. So first of all, it will try to pick up the fork which is the lowest in the number. So naturally, once every philosopher picks up the lowest number fork so P1 can pick only F1, P2 can pick F2, P3 can pick F3, and so on. So naturally, now philosopher 5, if you look at philosopher 5, the 2 forks that it can pick up is F1 and F5. So naturally, if all other philosophers pick up their lower numbered folks, so P5 is not able to pick anything and is now out of the competition. So now again, 4 philosophers, 5 folks, and one of them will get 2 folks. This is the idea behind this particular scenario. Generally, this is not practical to implement such solution, especially if you are talking about large number of records which are being accessed by many number of processes. So if the records are numbered, so now if a process requires a new record to be acquired, then it has to leave all the higher order records so that it can get the next record. So this is a solution which will be inefficient solution. In this particular case, we use an arbitrator. So the arbitrator will be distributing the forks. So naturally, if a philosopher wants to eat, he will intimate to the arbitrator. Arbitrator knows the number of availability of the how many folks are available, etc., etc. So depending upon that, arbitrator will permit only one philosopher to continue, and this philosopher will be allowed to pick up 2 folks and eat. If the philosopher doesn't want the fork, it can always put it down. So arbitrator will be managing the folks in such a manner that there is no deadlock. So it will ensure that philosopher either acquires both forks or it doesn't acquire any fork, and there is no deadlock. And generally, this arbitrator will be implemented as a mutex in the solution. There is another solution which is based on this paper. I have sent this paper on WhatsApp to you. So please read this paper, and we'll be discussing this solution and and Banker's algorithm in the next class. There is one more construct which is known as monitor, which is a high-level construct, synchronization construct, which consists of a mutex. It can consist of multiple mutex and many condition variables, and each methods. So it is basically kind of a class object. It's a kind of a class which will support many condition variables, many mutex, and methods. Each of them will be treated where each of them will be treated as a critical section. So we'll be discussing one of the solution using monitors, and we'll be concluding our process synchronization at that point. Then we'll see if there's some miscellaneous topic. We'll be either trying to cover it in the next class, or we'll be covering it when we talk about multiprocessor operating system. So if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm stopping this session. Any questions? Any questions? So I'll be uploading the slides today.